Hi, I'm Natalie. On Facebook, I'm Michelle Mingus. And on Reboot with Joe, I'm Natshell, because my name's Natalie Michelle. Anyway, I also have a blog called brandnewnatshell.blogspot.com. Uh, I'm here to tell you my story, and it's a story of weight loss. It's a story of healing. It's a story of miracles. Um, I have been going downhill physically, health-wise, for at least coming up on 3 decades. And by last August, I had gotten to, an all-time low of dependence on others and constant, all day, everyday pain. I couldn't sleep because of the pain. I couldn't walk across the room. I could walk across the room. I could walk across the room a couple of times a day. I would take all my medications when I first woke up in the morning. I'd take pain relievers out the yin yang and sit there and wait for them to all take effect, and then I'd be able to make it to the bathroom and back to my love seat. And then about, I'd have to make sure that, say, an hour before I was ready to go to bed, which was usually about 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, I would make sure and take pain relievers again to be able to make it from the love seat to my bed. My diet at that time was horrendous. It was prepackaged, cellophane wrappers, stick in the microwave, heat it up, and eat it, period, because my 17-year-old basically was cooking for me, sometimes my 19-year-old. They still live at home. And Harmony would get up and make coffee in the morning and bring me a microwaved breakfast burrito and my coffee or whatever. And she would, if I needed some of my knitting things, she'd bring them to me. Getting up and walking across the room was such a huge effort and caused so much pain that I literally very rarely did it. My son and his wife would do my shopping. He would, help me out to the vehicle and then to a motorized wheelchair if I just really had to go to the store or to a doctor or whatever. I was on all kinds of medications. Let's see, okay, here's the rundown. I had myasthenia gravis, which is an autoimmune disorder along the lines of lupus or MS. If I got too tired, too hot, too cold, too stressed, too hungry, anything, any assault to the system would cause antibodies to be produced that would attack my own body's systems. Usually the large muscle groups first, which would make me unable to walk or even sometimes sit up. I have a tumor in my chest called a thymoma that's associated with the myasthenia gravis. And it's anyone with an autoimmune disorder like that, MS, lupus, any of those, can tell you that it robs you of feeling valid, like you're worth your space on the planet, when you are so dependent on everyone around you. And especially when it comes and goes, because then when people see you where you are able to do things, I don't know, somehow they want to blame you, or maybe it's just in your own head that you want to blame you for the times when you can't. But anyway, that was actually just one little element. I was in pain all day, every day, for years, for decades of pain all day, every day. I had trashed my shoulder several times. I'd torn the rotator cuff. My knees are bone on bone. My hips were giving out. I was over 340 pounds. I had degenerative disc disease in my back. I had IBS, hypothyroidism, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, a lot of different things going on that really were making me feel like life wasn't life anymore. And I really, most of all, felt that I was a horrible example of how to live a life to my children and to my grandchildren. My kids would call and say, "Mom, You know, Riley and Sawyer want to come see you. They want to come see Grandma. Or the boys want to come hang out with Grandma. My older daughter's sons. Those kids are my sunshine. They're the light of my life. And I would have to say, well, if you can pick them up in just a couple of hours or something. Or I would spend an hour or two with them and then pass them off to my teenagers to deal with. And I would have to go hide in my room, because even having a little one sitting on my lap was torture. I couldn't pick him up. Flat couldn't. Not even the little 3-year-old. Not even when he was 1. You know, even a baby on my lap was painful. And it was killing me. It was just killing me. And I would get on Facebook and create fake profiles so that I could play Facebook games for the entire day. That's what I would do. I would sit there and play Facebook games in several accounts so that I could feel busy. And I would knit. I would knit like I got a lot of knitting done. I made lots and lots of stuff for charity and some things to sell and some gifts and things, because the knitting helped keep me sane. Sort of. That's debatable, but we won't go there. But yeah, it was my sanity, my zen, my way to keep from falling apart. And I would listen to audiobooks because I didn't want to stop knitting long enough to hold a book, because then I'd fall apart. Doctors really wouldn't do anything to correct the physical issues like my shoulder and my knee, because I'd had so many blood clots. I had huge blood clots that went from groin to knee on my right leg, and it had damaged the circulation in my leg so badly that my leg was just permanently weak, purple, discolored, and I mean the circulation was horrible. And the right, just for example, the right calf was about 7 inches larger than the left calf, just permanently, completely unrelated to any water retention or anything like that. Doctors said that that was permanent and that I needed to prepare myself for the likelihood that I would eventually have to have an emergency amputation. So they'll do surgery then, right? But that would be because it would probably be infected and gangrene or something like that. But yeah, they had reassured me of that. And recently, I don't think I've mentioned that I have a bone disease called Paget syndrome in my hips and pelvis that causes the bones to get very soft. And at my weight, any weight-bearing exercises was causing the bones to become deformed. So I wasn't allowed weight-bearing exercise. I didn't realize it at the time, but it is very common for people with Paget syndrome to also suffer congestive heart failure. Well, I started having symptoms of congestive heart failure, and I was familiar with it from my mom. I knew that's what it was, and that I needed to go in and get yet more prescriptions to take. Did I mention I'm 51, not 80? And I said no. I didn't tell anyone. My kids were like, well, when do you want us to, should we take you to the emergency room? And I said, oh, I'll figure it out. I'll make an appointment later. Or I'd say, oh, it's better, I'm feeling better, I wrote in my journal, I'm done. I'm not taking more medications. In fact, I'm going to stop everything. I'm praying that I have a stroke and will just die. And if I have a stroke and become just debilitated, a vegetable, then at least I'll be put out of everyone's way somewhere in a nursing home or something, because I didn't want to continue to be that horrible example of how to live a life to my kids and grandkids. I put in my journal, God, if you're not done with me, if you have anything left you want me to accomplish, you better put it before me now, because I'm done. And I'm not saying that's a sane way to think. I'm just saying that's where I was. And a couple days later, I got on Netflix. And I would do a lot of that too, just watching. I'd watch an entire TV series beginning to end on Netflix while knitting. Like I said, I had to have my hands going on the knitting. I've never been a sit in the house type of person. I love the outdoors. I love horses. I love swimming. I love gardening. Uh, Not flower gardening. I like growing vegetables. I can kill flowers better than anybody. I wasn't able to do anything that meant something to me anymore. And I was just done. And I got on Netflix and I saw Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. It was on my recommended videos, even though I usually watched sci-fi and fantasy, that kind of thing. Never watched documentaries, never watched anything to do with nutritional healing or anything like that, but Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead and Forks Over Knives came up in my recommended for you. And I watched them, and I cried, and I watched them again, and I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt, bone deep, I knew that that was God's answer to what I had written in my journal. And, if you're not religious, or if you're, agnostic or atheist or whatever, I hope that you at least can believe that there is some kind of higher power that has some purpose for you. If not, whatever. I do. And I knew. I haven't had a single doubt from that moment forward that this is what I was supposed to do. This is what He expected of me. And long story short, well, this isn't very short. I thought I was going to keep it under 10 minutes. Sorry, people, if you're still with me. A few days later, I had my kids watch it. The 17 and 19-year-old and my son and daughter-in-law all watched it, and I told my older kids and my husband about it, and they watched it. My husband's a truck driver, so he's gone all the time, but he watched it as well. And a few days later, we threw out everything in the house, every scrap of food that had any chemicals, additives, which was everything. I didn't buy vegetables back then. I mean, occasionally some bananas for the kids or something. That's about it. We ate out of the freezer. Sandwiches sometimes, maybe a can of soup. So we just threw out everything. Went and got a whole bunch of produce, and we went to a liquidation outlet. Love liquidation outlets. If you have one in your area, check them out. I got a juicer that's usually $100 for $50, and it's a Jason Vale fusion juicer. Actually, first I got a Hamilton Big Mouth, but when my husband got home, he took that on the road with him. So I went back and got the Jason Vale fusion juicer, which actually, honestly, is better. You get more juice from your produce, and it's quieter. So I do like that one better. And we started. The teenagers, they're both overweight. These girls have a different mom than my grown kids had, and they are quite overweight. We all started juicing that day. We juiced nothing but juice for the better part of 3 weeks. I'll go into more detail on that in the next video, and we still juice all the time, and we eat a plant-based diet now. Everything is different. Everything is different. I've lost 60 pounds. The girls have both lost over 50 pounds each. My husband was wanting to lose about 30 pounds and get his blood pressure down, which he did in time for his physical. Got it approved for 2 years again, instead of 6 months like he had been getting because of his blood pressure. So, that's all great. I've lost 60 pounds, and I will be losing a lot more. A year from now, I won't even look like the same person. People will be like, oh, how'd you lose the weight? And I'm going to tell them what I'm going to tell you now. Heck with the weight. I got my life back. Miracles happen. And that's, I think, where I'm going to end this one. And my next video, I'll go more into detail of how we handled our actual juice fast and how we transitioned onto food. Those are big for people who are starting out. So we'll talk about that in the next video. In the meanwhile, juice on. If I did this, you can. You got this. Let's do it.